compared to what you knew about women's health, it must have been interesting going through pregnancy.
To be honest, I hit a brick wall. It wasn't what I expected. Even someone with a healthcare background and with knowledge under my belt, as a CrossFit athlete, there was absolutely nothing to support me. Women are fitter than they've ever been before. We're doing things that we could have never expected in our parents' generation, but the guidelines hadn't kept up and they weren't there to support that higher end, competitive, slightly perfectionist woman. So where's the guidelines for someone that's used to squatting 60, 70, 80 kilos? Where's the guidelines for someone who is used to redlining for 30 minutes and then being unable to breathe or speak? The guidelines were simply there to say moderate exercise, 30 minutes, 5 times a week. Women aren't doing that anymore. Women are going harder than that. They're going heavier than that. As a women's health physio and a perfectionist, I thought I could do better. So I created the Hatch Athletic Postpartum program.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the InnerFight podcast. Today, we are talking all about pre and postpartum fitness and nutrition, and really what are some of the probably the most important things that you may need to know on your journey through bringing another human being into the world. And no, this is not just for ladies. Yes, a lot of it is a little bit more specific to ladies, but actually I believe that this show is probably as, if not more important for men. Men that are in relationships, planning on being in relationships, or generally just around females, which that hopefully covers off pretty much every single one of us. My guest today is a lady by the name of Kat Suchet. She is a dedicated women's health physiotherapist, CrossFit athlete, and the founder of a really beautiful concept called Hatch Athletic. She's a massive advocate for women's health, and she's really made it her mission to, I guess you'd say, provide essential information to females in a way that it's understandable. This is all based on her own experience of, as she shares with us during the show, just feeling completely lost during the whole process of childbirth and coming back to fitness after childbirth. We talk all about the challenges that many, many women face and therefore also impact men. That's why men, you need to listen during pre and postnatal stage of their life. She shares some really awesome ideas of very simple, very safe and easy to do exercises that people might want to get involved in, and also how to, which I think is one of the biggest ones, how to navigate a lot of what could be misinformation that's out there on the topic of pre and postnatal. What should you follow? What shouldn't you follow? You go to Google, you might be completely lost. Hopefully, Kat's beautiful, soothing voice and the way that she presents it and presents the information may give you a great direct source to go to. Here I come with it again. Don't forget to follow us and hit the bell button to receive alerts on new content on the channel. There we go. This is episode number 449 of the InnerFight podcast. No matter where you are in the world, thanks a lot for tuning in. Let's jump into today's show. Let's kick off then. The hard question to start. A lady has just had a baby and she wants to work out. What's the first step?
When did she have her baby? I think you've got to establish when she had her baby first of all.
What should we give it? When do you feel, after having a baby, when do you feel like you first work out? A few weeks?
I think, typically speaking, at around 5, 6, 7 weeks postpartum, most ladies will visit their GP for a check postpartum to be given the green light to resume exercise. At which point you might see her come into your gym and say, hey, I want to start exercising postpartum. You know, what can I do?
Sorry to jump in straight away, but let's jump back to that step. You've been through it twice.
Yep.
You go to your GP, That's a very English term, by the way.
Sorry.
General practitioner, folks. You go and see your doctor. You don't. It's weird. We don't. Yeah, GP is very English. That's to show that how English I am, obviously. What happens when you go for like that check and because there's a lot of women that actually want to get back to fitness. We'll talk about the category that maybe are a little bit reluctant later, but what happens in that check? What is the check?
It really depends on where you go and who you go to see. Unfortunately, it's a postcode lottery, and it depends on what country you live in, whether that's included in your healthcare or whether it's something that you have to pay for privately. So unfortunately, one size doesn't fit all, and a lot of the time medical professionals aren't screening women with all the necessary questions anyway. They're checking up on the baby first, making sure the baby's all right. Yeah. They do generally check in on mental health, but they will rarely do a full examination of that woman in terms of checking to see if she's had any birth injuries or if she's had a C-section, to check the C-section scar. A lot of the time these days, ladies are coming into the clinic and they've not been physically checked. They've just been asked, "Are you okay?"
Should we be worried about that?
Yes. Really, really worried.
That's
because
mental.
It's not on a lot of women's radars to get seen by a women's health professional to check, have they had a birth injury? Have they had any long-standing damage to their abdominal wall, to their pelvic floor? And they might just get that green light from the GP because everything feels okay. And the problem with that is they don't know exactly what they can and can't do in the gym, so they can't guide their trainers or their professionals when they're in the gym at all.
This might sound like a little bit of an ignorant question, and I apologize to all of the female listeners who think I'm stupid for asking it. But you mentioned something there about an injury during birth. Mm-hmm. Now, for most of the time, most of us would think if we have an injury, we would feel it. Mm-hmm. We pull a hamstring or something, or my hamstring's a bit sore, or something happens in the shoulder when we're doing pull-ups in CrossFit, for example. We're like, okay, I'm injured. When we give birth, we could have an injury internally that we don't know about. Is that possible, or that doesn't really present itself in the same way?
It can do. It's less common.
Okay.
I think most women would know that there was something going on. Right. Because they might have either sensations of bulging, dragging, heaviness, or they might have leaking and problems with pain down there. Right. So they often will come saying, things don't feel quite right.
Right.
But those that don't will come with a complex birth history. So they'll talk to you about trauma during their delivery, or potentially they're those ladies that had very long push phases or very long labours, complicated labours, that then involve having to have some intervention during their labour and their delivery.
Right. So most of the time they'd know if they've been injured.
They wouldn't. Most of the time they would know about it.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So that's almost
not always.
Not always though.
No.
So almost the first check is that if you have had a tough time, let's call it that, during delivery or even during your pregnancy, then maybe your post check with your doctor should be a lot more than, hey, how are you feeling? Here's a green light, get out of here.
But there's a lot of doctors out there that aren't qualified to check in that way. They've not done the courses, or they don't know what to do or what to look for.
Wow.
So yeah, it's still an area that we are struggling to provide for women all over the place. It's those that can afford and know about it will get the checks, but a lot of women won't, especially ladies that have had C-sections, won't routinely get their pelvic floors assessed postpartum.
So if we try and be a little bit pragmatic about it, and we want to get people back into the gym, and you're not a doctor, and you don't trust Google too much, but we obviously trust this show because it's so trustworthy. What would be some of the checkpoints that ladies should be looking for? And also, which we spoke about this a little bit before we started recording, perhaps fitness coaches should know about and therefore be asking questions around when a lady does come back to the gym 6 weeks, 8 weeks, even 3 months after giving birth.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one. If you're a fitness professional, you're not used to asking questions like this. And it isn't a healthcare environment. You may be starting a class. It might not be a private environment in which you can have these conversations. So this is a very gold standard.
Yeah.
And I can appreciate how difficult it is to have these conversations, especially if you're not having them all the time. For someone like me, day in, day out, I'm speaking about bladder, bowel, pelvic health, that sort of thing. But
it's so weird, isn't it? Like, I agree with you, but I've never had a problem to say to someone, like, and you're right, sometimes when someone presents himself at a class, it's maybe like, I love it in group classes where like the coach goes, does anyone have any injuries or something wrong they want to share? Like no one ever puts their hand up.
And the problem is then what do you do with that information once you've been given it?
You'll be fine.
Exactly. You're kind of, I've been a coach, I've been there.
Yeah.
Before I had a lot of this knowledge, someone comes to me with a problem that I've not dealt with before, you kind of wish no one puts their hand up, because then you've got to think about, how am I going to modify this class for this one person? I'm running late, I'm about to start. Let's hope no one's got anything serious here, because I don't know how to deal with this. Yeah. So in a long-winded answer to your question, there are questions that you can ask. You can ask specifically about, did you have a complicated delivery? Are you still dealing with or recovering from pain? Do you have any unusual feelings or sensations down there that you didn't used to have? Do you have any leaking or problems with your bladder that you didn't used to have? How confident are your coaches to ask these questions? I don't know. And should there be an expectation for coaches to ask this? It's a difficult one.
What do you think about that?
I'm not sure it should be a pre-class thing. And I don't think the responsibility should land on, say, a coach whose responsibility is to manage a class.
Yeah.
I think this is a conversation for a postpartum woman to have with a one-to-one trainer prior to the class. Someone who potentially has a bit more knowledge and understanding of the topic, or who can signpost her towards someone that does. And then you can brief whoever's going to be running the class about what her needs are. I think to have that expectation on every single coach that is going to run that out, an hourly group exercise situation, is quite a big expectation.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we can be a little bit critical, and I think there's a lot of coaches that women's health and birth aside, coaches probably don't ask enough questions. But I think sometimes, it's hard to expect, because what's a coach going to do?
No, exactly. You can't expect everyone to have an interest in that field.
No, some of them just freak out.
No, and
which is horrible. But
it would be really naive of me to be saying, every coach should have a women's health knowledge and be able to prescribe accordingly for every single woman that comes into their class. But that's just not realistic.
True.
And it would be diluted anyway, because it would be such a surface level thing that they could do. I think every gym should have someone who has that knowledge or understanding, or that they can signpost them to the right person that does, maybe outsource it. It's a digital world. You can have a phone conversation, you can have a Zoom conversation about a lady who's had a complicated delivery. She's starting next week. She's told us this XYZ. Can you guide us with how we can best support her in our gym so that she can keep coming?
Yeah, right. Do you think that's the safest way? Like, the first step should not actually be, for example, a gym like ours, our mainline class is pretty much a CrossFit class.
Yeah.
I personally don't think that that's the first step. Despite if you've been signed off by your doctor, like we said, there's a lot of inconsistencies. Perhaps the first step is, and we started running these with Carmen, is like postnatal classes, and it's like 5 just to see, and it starts super basic, and it that's almost like a stepping stone to the next step.
I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea. What that does though is it assumes all women are coming from the same place. And so if you have a postnatal class, at what point does that woman not qualify for the postnatal class? Are there some women that don't need to go to that postnatal class and could get a lot more enjoyment out of just going straight into CrossFit classes scaled if they've got that knowledge? I think it's a great idea, but I also don't feel like every single postnatal woman
Is there some that
should
can
be
just
made
jump
to do
back
that.
into?
Some, yeah.
Really?
Some. I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't recommend it because naturally with every delivery, you've got, even if you train up to the point, the day of your delivery, there's probably been a minimum period that we always say flat out minimum period of 3 weeks where you mustn't do anything at all.
Yeah.
And we tend to then work on a case-by-case basis, but typically speaking, 5 to 6 weeks would be your normal time that someone's going to return to some sort of graded fitness. At that point, we are expecting someone who, even if they trained up until delivery date, has been off training for over a month. At which point we're not going to have them come in to squat under a barbell immediately. We're not going to have them doing double unders immediately straight off the bat, potentially going to red line immediately. We're going to want to phase them back into some sort of progressive program, even if it's for a short period of time, to prevent things like wrist injuries, knee injuries. Never mind the pelvic floor. This is someone that's not trained for a longer period of time, and most women will have a very deconditioned core, very deconditioned, which then lays them susceptible to back injury more than most people. So
that was one question I had. The number of complaints, I guess they are complaints around back issues in both pregnant ladies and post-birth for, it could be a long time, seems quite high.
Yeah.
Totally related to core strength?
No.
Not at all.
It's definitely related to core strength, but there are loads of other elements.
Yeah.
So a pregnant woman is a totally different hormonal profile. Yeah. So from the moment you become pregnant, your hormonal profile is completely different. And during one pregnancy, a woman's body will produce the same amount of estrogen that she does through the remainder of her entire life. Having said that, on top of that, we have really high progesterone levels and really high relaxin levels, as well as a whole hormonal concoction of different things running around your bloodstream. You've also got a higher blood volume there as well. So you're a different chemical human.
Yeah.
On top of that, you have physical loads on the musculoskeletal system as the baby develops.
Yeah, sure.
So your backbone, essentially, is being pulled out of alignment by bub, sitting with the uterus, heavy uterus on the front, so that essentially your spine has to offset bub as it grows. And there is no one pregnant woman that hasn't got a postural compensation there towards the third trimester.
Right.
On top of that, 100% of women will have abdominal separation by the third trimester, meaning that they're naturally, this isn't necessarily an injury long term, but naturally their abdominal wall will separate via the connective tissue at their midsection to make way for their growing baby. But what this does is it does definitely compromise your core strength certainly in later pregnancy. Earlier.
So even if you, and we're going to talk a little bit about preparing and what we should do before birth, but even if you still have a lot of core strength, we still would see some back pain at some stage, possibly.
No, just higher incidence of it.
Yeah.
You're going to get lots of ladies who are very fortunate that don't get pelvis pain, that don't get hip pain, and that don't get back pain.
Do you really hate those ladies?
Yes.
It's like,
I call them unicorns.
It's like the ones that the kids, as soon as they get them home from hospital, they sleep. It's like, I've never had a problem sleeping.
Yeah.
Bang.
How dare you? Yeah. Do you know how many women are struggling right now? Yeah.
Lauren hasn't slept for 3 years, sat over there. You don't like those women either, do you?
They do exist. There are lots of ladies that won't have back pain. I don't think we can assume that any lady is like the next.
Yeah.
And there are lots of women that will have pain-free pregnancies and enjoy training with absolutely no problems whatsoever throughout their entire pregnancies.
Wow.
So we can't assume that there will be problems.
Let's rewind then, Kat. How do you know all of this stuff? How did you get into it, and what's actually going on?
So I'm a women's health physiotherapist, and I qualified about 13 years ago. Was working in musculoskeletal and neurological conditions.
Wow.
And then moved to Australia and became very, very interested in women's health. It's a very big industry out there.
Bigger than the UK?
Much bigger.
Why is that?
I think they've got a different healthcare system, so it makes private healthcare more accessible to everybody.
Yep.
So in Australia, they will fund through the Medicare system your choice of anywhere, any private provider that you want to go to. They will give you a rebate. It's not the same, certainly in the UK. There aren't.
What are you saying about the NHS?
It's under a lot of strain.
Big time, man.
And it can't provide what the healthcare system in Australia can by offsetting and making people pay subsidised amounts to go to private healthcare providers. But in the UK, they're trying to do it all themselves, unfortunately.
Yeah, we could do a whole other segment on the NHS, couldn't we?
Yeah. I don't want to badmouth the NHS at all. It was set up to provide critical care.
Yeah.
And unfortunately now it's sinking under the strain of providing physiotherapy and mental health support and outpatient support, and the private healthcare system could be doing a really good job of supporting them to do critical care. But unfortunately they're having to do it all.
So in Australia, the market is bigger, or the issue was wider, but that's where you really got your interest in, was it?
Yeah, so there's a women's health physiotherapist on every corner, and it's very normal for women to have a check-in pregnancy by a women's health physiotherapist, and then to have their medical professional at 6 weeks, and also a full women's MOT, I guess you call it from the UK, or a full postnatal check at about 6 weeks postpartum with a women's health.
Big difference to what happens in the UK then?
It's not standardised at all. So you just get your GP check in the UK and given the green light. And a lot of these, like I said, a lot of these ladies aren't having internal examinations or physical checks at all.
Wow.
So yeah, it's not available and not offered. And if you do go privately and it is available, it's quite cost prohibitive, because none of that is subsidised by the healthcare system. So you have to pay for a lot of it yourself, if not all of it yourself.
That's tricky then. Yeah.
It is if you don't have private healthcare, it's almost inaccessible.
Yeah, which is terrible. We'll carry on your story because I think it's quite interesting. I have to say this bit so everyone knows. You went to Australia for an adventure, and a month after you got there, you were pregnant. So you're obviously having a pretty good adventure.
An adventure of a different kind.
So, which I think is probably what was meant to be, right? Because you're interested in this, and then you get this first-hand experience. Yeah. So, how was it compared to what you knew about women's health? Mm-hmm. It must have been interesting going through pregnancy. How did you approach it, knowing what you knew?
To be honest, I hit a brick wall. It wasn't what I expected.
Oh.
Yeah. And so even someone with a healthcare background and with knowledge under my belt, as a CrossFit athlete, there was absolutely nothing to support me at all. And no research out there either. So I thought I was going to be the one who smashed it in the gym, that was rocking this fit pregnancy, get that #fit bump going. And yeah, I hit a brick wall mentally and physically, because I had been very competitive and I'd been a coach myself, and I thought that I would be able to walk the walk and talk the talk. And this is what happened. Was there was absolutely nothing out there. There was a few things on Google that were conflicting, and I didn't know where to turn, and so Hatch was born.
Wow.
Because there simply wasn't anything out there, and I didn't want other women to go through what I was going through, so I started to. Let's
jump into that, because I think that's really interesting. There must have been a weird feeling of loneliness, of lostness, of maybe even dream sort of shattered, isn't it? Because for a lot of people through our years, we want to be parents and it's something that's going to be amazing. And then you get to this point where your body's changing, the baby's growing, and it's supposed to be it's supposed to be a beautiful time. We're recreating, which is an amazing ability that we have. What are we, like 1 in 400 billion chance of getting here? Yeah. Like, it's cool. Like, you've managed to do it. And then what you described there, or what I'm hearing, is just some real emptiness and probably then fear. So mentally, Absolutely. it must have been wild.
It was, because I think on top of all of that, you come at it as a very driven person who has been very competitive, very alpha, has always been in control of all things, and has learnt that if you try hard enough in anything, you can, in the end, get results. And then with pregnancy, it's just not the same.
Yeah, right.
You're used to a lifetime of manipulating your body to see results. And pregnancy just has something else to say about it for some of us. And that's quite a bitter pill to swallow for someone that is very goal-oriented, very driven, very alpha. And you realize, well, actually, I am one of these that gets backache. I am one of these that has pelvic girdle pain and that can't do half the movements in the gym from the 20-week mark.
That's mental.
And what can I do about it? Is there anything here to support me? No, there's nothing here to support me either. So crash.
Wow.
If you're not careful. And so the need for community in this ever-growing, brilliant fitness world that is evolving for women, which is fantastic. Women are fitter than they've ever been before. We're doing things that we could have never expected in our parents' generation. Yeah. And female fitness is just absolutely wild and insane and brilliant.
Yeah.
But the guidelines hadn't kept up, and they weren't there to support, that higher end, competitive, slightly perfectionist woman who didn't have the guidelines of, so where's the guidelines for someone that's used to squatting 60, 70, 80 kilos? Where's the guidelines for someone who is used to redlining for 30 minutes and then being unable to breathe or speak after a workout? The guidelines were simply there to say, moderate exercise, 30 minutes, 5 times a week.
That doesn't work very well.
But women aren't doing that anymore.
Yeah.
Women are going harder than that. They're going heavier than that.
Why do you think something that we've been doing for a number of years, thousands of years, having babies, there's no guidelines? Like you said it, like we've evolved and it's awesome. Like we're seeing strong females. We're seeing that whole, even in my lifetime in the fitness industry, like I judge it a lot, our percentage of females in my gym. We've gone from like, when we started, it was all my rugby mates, so 0.
Yeah.
And Holly used to come and she'd be the only chick there, and we'd be in this dirty gym in the back of Alcos and it was horrible and blah, blah, blah. To now, I watched the class this morning and there was 80% females. I coached the class at 5:30, which was 70% females. I think we're higher than ever before. Yeah. So why haven't, it seems like we've just completely missed this whole chunk of women are going to get pregnant and therefore we need X, Y, and Z, but why have we missed it why have we been so stupid?
It's not at all. No one's missed anything. And I think guidelines are trying to keep up. It's just the fitness industry has gone boom, really quick. Yeah. Far too fast for any research papers to be approved, ethics to be approved, funding to be provided. It's not ethically appropriate to do a lot of these tests on pregnant women, and that ethics would never be approved. So we're really struggling to find quality papers, quality research to support this level of fitness in pregnancy. A lot of it is based on experience or anecdotal stuff, and it still is today. But there is more stuff coming out, albeit not altogether great, but there is more and more coming out.
I love the way you're so diplomatic. I've teed you up to abuse the NHS. I've teed you up to...
I don't know who's watching.
This is my show. You can say what the fuck you like.
There's some amazing stuff coming out in Canada. There's some incredible stuff coming out in the Scandinavian countries where there are research studies being done.
That's cool.
Are they actually being done as randomized controlled trials with many, many people? No. We've got small numbers on varying degrees of intensity. And then we've got people like Tia Claire Toomey coming through, N equals 1. But she's still N equals 1. We've seen someone now go through it, the ringer in pregnancy, and we know it's possible.
Yeah.
And the more that anecdotally we can then pair up some of these trials that are coming through, I'm hoping that in the future we have more and more stuff that we can provide. But at the moment, we have to go with everything that we've got, and we have to sort of create this sort of soup of personal experience, professional experience, anecdotal experience, and the research that we've got to try and come up with some guidelines to support women, because we can't just stick our neck in the sand and say there's not enough research. We've got to provide something. But there are some vanilla researchers out there that say, no, until we've not got perfect research, we can't provide anything at all. And I think that's letting a whole population of fit women down.
It's tricky, isn't it? Because there's two sides to the argument. There's, how did we feel about the COVID vaccine when it first came out?
Yeah.
Everyone's like, well, there's no study. And then what you're saying is, I'm on your side. But it's like, actually, there's no, show me a good study that says, like, I told you the story before we started recording about the girl who back squatted it incredibly and then played a joke on us in the gym. But like, she was super healthy. But the message that I get from you a lot is every female is so different. So even if we bunched if we got a sample size of 300, 3,000, 30,000, we're going to see such a... So let's go. You said something. Hatch was born. What is Hatch? What hatched Hatch? What was born? So that was a terrible joke.
Hatch. It's a good one. I'll give you that. Hatch started as a blog and a community, a Facebook group, where I literally started to research myself amongst friends in the UK, people that I knew in Australia, women's health specialists, doctors, mostly doctors and physiotherapists from Australia and the UK, because I was asking the questions and I wanted some of the answers. And it snowballed and it became extremely popular very quickly. And then so this must have been around the time that I had my first baby. So I decided to rewind a little bit. Trying to think how this actually happened. I decided to...
Put all your notes here. I can read them.
I decided to look at some of the postpartum programs that were on offer and was really, really disappointed by what I saw.
Right.
And as a women's health physio and a perfectionist, I thought I could do better. So I created the Hatch Athletic Postpartum program for myself and then decided to turn it into a product for other women that needed the same.
Wow.
And then since then, it has become a course. So it's an educational piece for both coaches and pregnant women that want to learn about their bodies through pregnancy. And the do's and don'ts of all pregnancy training. So that's a video course. And then we also offer a 3-trimester pregnancy training program. Wow. So you can actually do the whole whammy. You can do the education piece. You can get the training programs in pregnancy and then join us for postpartum training. Or you can do little bits of both. Yeah.
I was having a conversation last night with Holly, my wife, about trends in the fitness industry and people jumping on the back of what's almost topical.
Yeah.
There seems at the moment to be, which I'm all for. I'm happy that this is topical. Females, understanding hormones, perimenopause, natal, post, pre, all of that. My point is that, and I love you because your story's good and you're a good person and everything's cool. So I'm not saying that you're a fraud. Before, there's a small caveat here. Yeah, thank God. But you said it, you go onto Google and it's conflicting and it's a minefield. Mm-hmm. This is a very personal sort of thing. It's a female's body, one female's body. I'm not trying to ask you to justify what you're doing. I believe in what you're doing, but how do you feel? It's more about you having gone through this. How do you feel putting out what you're putting out? How is it different from the stuff that's out there that's conflicting or other products? Because you open Instagram and I see a million, chicks talking about this, that, and the other. I'm like, you have no fucking clue.
Yeah.
Like, and that's judgy from my side and it's wrong, but I think most of the time I'm right. So like, not about everything, but about that, because it just doesn't look legit. So how do you sort of separate yourself and why should we listen to you in the nicest possible way, Kat? Like why, how is it different?
I think social media gives rise to both positive and negatives, and I think one of the unfortunate sides of it is it gives a platform to anyone that wants to say anything at all.
So true. Punched in the face.
Having said that, there are a lot of women and PTs that have done courses and that have a certain level of understanding that are providing support to women that wouldn't usually have it. Like we've discussed, there's a lot of there's a big gap between what women are able to access. So if they're able to access any information at all, I would suggest that more often than not, it might be better than nothing when it comes to fitness. I will even maintain that when it comes to, supporting a woman with postpartum injury and things like that. If it's basic, common sense, healthy advice to get a woman back into fitness, then it can only be a good thing. Having said that.
So if it's super confusing, you need to back out.
Yeah, I think having said that, I think if they're trying to do too much, or if they're trying to tackle topics that they don't have qualifications to give advice on, or topics that are just totally out of their scope of practice, then yeah, like you say, proceed with caution, because if you suspect that you have any sort of pelvic floor dysfunction postpartum, that you have a birth injury, or that you've got some area in your body works that might need some extra support, it would be really beneficial to go with someone who you trust, for example, that has a qualification in women's health field, that also understands the fitness industry and what progressive rehab looks like. Because
so is it, it's more a medical, like a health field qualification that you would look for, and then an application or an experience in the fitness industry? The
two best programs that I know of, one of which is mine.
Come on, promote yourself, that's why we're here.
Is developed by Women's Health Physio.
Okay.
There's one in the US, and I think she's great, and her content is fantastic. And then there's mine in the UK.
Okay.
Are you
the only person in the UK that does what you do to the quality that you do it?
That I know of that's been designed by a Women's Health Physio, yes.
Wow.
But having said that, there are lots of brilliant programs out there.
You're so diplomatic. I'd be drilling them.
No
one does what I do.
But there are also women's health physios that have done rehab programs.
Yeah, right. Okay.
In the UK, I can think of 4 or 5 right now that have done women's health physios that have done postpartum programs, but they are for Gen Pop moderate fitness. individuals.
They never had a 100 kilo back squat PR.
Exactly. So
that's what I'm talking about.
So what I'm talking about is the niche area that we bridge the gap for. Yeah, there are lots of brilliant, absolutely brilliant postpartum programs out there if you want to do body weight lunges and some core exercises at home, you know, on your phone, and get back into a certain level of fitness so that you can potentially run at some point or do a triathlon at some point, or maybe do some endurance events and things like that. If you want to get into extreme weightlifting, skilled gymnastics, or points at which you are pushing your body beyond its limits, then I think we're the only ones in the UK that support that.
That's cool. So let's talk about that then, and link it back to how much weight you could lift before. It's very important.
Yeah.
This is your CV.
This is what everyone wants to know.
Yeah, for sure. Like with blokes, it's like, how much can you bench?
How much did you squat?
Yeah, literally, right? Like, you know, that's what you want a job here as a bloke. Like, can you bench?
Andy knows.
Can you bench over 100 kilos, sort of thing? And then, you know, we're a bit deeper than that. But when we could make this so broad, but let's narrow it down, because I need to get you back for another show. I was going to say I get pregnant, but I probably won't. But a female gets pregnant. What do we continue? Can we continue? Did you continue training like you were training?
Well, no, because I was very sick and I got everything that you can get. I was so sick for the first 20 weeks. Like I said, I wanted to be the unicorn, but I just wasn't.
Really? So mentally you suffered and physically you suffered?
Yeah. I had a really tough time with both pregnancies. Very, very sick for 20 weeks.
You'll let the kids know in later life, eh?
Yeah.
Good.
you know.
I never, until my mum passed away, literally she told people how long she was in labour with me for. I'm like, Mum, enough already. I'm like, you're almost like gone and I'm 40 something. It's like, it's enough.
I think it's a lottery.
Yeah.
And what I tell most women
Yeah.
is expect to perform differently to what you're used to.
That's cool.
Because even if you don't have back pain, even if you don't have pelvic floor dysfunction or any of these more problematic areas, remember this hormonal cocktail that's running through your bloodstream is the same for every woman. And you are going to get hotter quicker, your heart rate is going to spike quicker, you're going to need to take on a lot more water and take on a lot more rest than you're used to. And that pretty much applies to every single pregnant woman. They're going to perform differently, and that's quite a tough pill to swallow for those competitive ladies that really, really, really want to smash it. Yeah, it's hard.
But we can continue strength training. We've spoken quite a bit about core and the importance of it. We can continue, like, I think a lot of females, because something's growing in their stomach, it's like they're not, like, are we doing baby sit-ups? Like, is the baby getting affected when we're doing sit-ups sort of thing? And I think, again, if you go to Google, you probably get conflicting. Yeah. But one thing that I like when we were doing before, you need to continue as much as you can for as long as you can.
100%. And anyone that doesn't runs the risk of being extremely and unnecessarily deconditioned at the other side. So I think a lot of the training that we do in pregnancy should be with one eye on postpartum, getting through delivery, and one eye on having a really good postpartum recovery. So the longer we can keep moving, the longer we can keep squatting and deadlifting, the stronger we can be in pregnancy, the better. So then it's all about managing exertion so that you can keep going to your exercise classes and not necessarily being completely floored for the rest of your day, because all of us are doing this amazing fitness, but we're also holding down jobs and managing Instagram platforms or whatever it is that you're doing outside of the gym. We don't want to absolutely smash ourselves in the gym and be a hero and then not manage the rest of our day during pregnancy. So it's all about balance while staying as strong as we possibly can, because we know that squats, glutes, core work in pregnancy is the answer to keeping pain at bay, keeping injury at bay, and getting us back postpartum as quickly as possible.
One thing you kind of touched on there, which obviously has a massive impact on how we perform in life generally, is is recovery and therefore sleep. Sleeplessness, because of the change of our hormones or females' hormones during pregnancy, sleep also starts to change. How do you put the two together? How do you put together a female's or your ambition to stay fit, to continue squatting, deadlifting, working out in whatever field, whether it's CrossFit or not, with a lack of sleep and therefore bad recovery from probably day 1 till year 25?
Yeah. And the worry that comes with it.
Yeah.
Worry for life, I think. Oh my gosh. Do you mean postpartum mainly? Yeah.
I mean, massive? You must have recovery, like you said, when you were pregnant, your hormones are all over the place, so your recovery is different as well.
Yeah, 100%. When you're pregnant, well, certainly for the first part of pregnancy, I'd say you sleep like the dead.
Really?
For a lot of women.
Still not selling it, but yeah.
There's not a lot of trouble with sleep in the early parts of pregnancy, usually, unless you've obviously got a sleep disorder.
Yeah.
But that period of sleep deprivation will come into later pregnancy as a woman gets more uncomfortable generally in the later periods of pregnancy. But postpartum, that will be a concoction of changes in hormones, but also there's a little person who is keeping you awake. And or there are other needs, like potentially you've been kept awake for a long period of time and the child is now sleeping, but you're not. And that can be a really, really tough one for a woman that no one ever talks about, postpartum insomnia at all.
Really?
That everyone just asks, how's the baby sleeping? But actually a woman's sleep deprivation can be quite, debilitating, I guess is the word. And like you say, it can really impact on recovery and hormonal balance and all sorts of things in terms of performance.
So how do you mix performance training with that?
Yeah. It's about understanding where that woman, what stage that woman is at. Is she breastfeeding? So she will be in a period of, I guess you could almost call it hormonally a period of pseudo-menopause in a sense that she's in a hypoestrogenic state, meaning that she's got very low estrogen running through her body, which will affect the amount that she can lift. It will affect her body composition hugely, but it will also affect her circadian rhythms and also her menstrual cycle. So all of that has got to be played on top of what's her nutrition like, how is she fueling herself, and what kind of training is she doing? Is she doing just pure strength training? Is she doing progressive loading? Is she doing hypertrophy? Is she doing massive endurance pieces? So it's about working holistically with someone to really figure out what supplements are they taking, what extra protein are they having on board, what kind of sleep are they getting, and if they're not able to manufacture that sleep, how can we help get her that restorative stimulus that we need for recovery? Or there will come a point where we just have to work with what we've got. So if she is being woken 5-6 times a night and she's not getting on enough of the right nutrients, we have to then program accordingly. We can't necessarily just go gung-ho, let's get this woman into this program that we necessarily want for her, because sometimes it's just not possible.
You're the first person that's made me think about supplementation for females at that time of their life.
Yeah.
That's mad.
Yeah.
I'm so naive and ignorant.
No, not at all. It's just not spoken about, that's all.
Totally.
And there's not enough research about it.
I don't see many pregnant women or postnatal women in supplement shops going, "Wee, let's get some protein shakes."
Which supplement shops are you going to? Because in Sydney, they're everywhere.
I mean, you see a lot more. I guess you do see a lot more now with, and with a lot more natural supplements.
Yeah.
It's
there's better products out there now. Yeah, I think.
What are some of the more common stuff? If that's perked a little bit of interest in some ladies listening, like what would you see need supplementing more?
In pregnancy?
Yeah, or pregnancy or even post.
You're not going to like the answer.
No, she's going to be like, everyone's individual.
Everyone is different.
Yeah.
And first and foremost, and I'm sure you give this advice to all your members at the gym, is food is key. So if you can get it on by any means by your food, then do it. Generally speaking, a woman's protein need in pregnancy will be a little bit higher. Okay. So if she is going to take a protein supplement in pregnancy, then that's absolutely fine, as long as we just generally say that it should contain as limited artificial ingredients as possible, but try and get it from foods first.
And do you get, sorry to jump in there, because appetite changes a lot.
Yeah.
Cravings are a lot different.
Yeah.
The way that we, like, is it often for some women just great to have like a super smoothie kind of thing that has a good protein supplement in it, a load of really nice ingredients, because that is just, and you hear of being time poor, and like I can imagine you genuinely are. You said it earlier, like you're taking care of someone else, you probably have to go back to work, your other kid's probably up, your husband's probably fucked off somewhere, like it's all a nightmare, right?
Yeah, and there's no time at all for yourself.
So we're happy with like taking in our nutrition in different forms than normal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think whatever works, especially in pregnancy, because your tastes will change. Yeah. And there are a lot of women that won't want to eat in the way that they used to.
Yeah, that's what I kind of...
Yeah. Well, first things first, I would say don't beat yourself up. I think there's a big obsession over... There's a lot of women, certainly we get a lot of chat in the group, that are really worried about the change in their body composition, the fact that they're going to put on weight, the fact that they only want to eat beige carbohydrates for the first 20 weeks, and they're just terrified about what the outcome's going to be. So I think in the first instance, we've got to encourage our athletes and our ladies that love to train, and that, because let's be fair, a lot of women that love to train have a relationship with food.
Of course, yeah.
Be that a positive or a negative one. And
guys as well, eh?
Yeah. So a lot of women will have a story about what they want to achieve in terms of their body composition, or what they want to achieve through their pregnancy or maintain through their pregnancy, and what they expect from afterwards. So there's a lot of projection there. There's a lot of history there. There's a lot of complex stuff going on when we talk about food in pregnancy. So first things first, I think it's really important not to food shame in pregnancy at all. And if a woman can eat and keep food down in the first half of her pregnancy, then just do it, and don't be too ashamed about what's going in. Just get it in.
Extra protein through Cadbury's dairy milk is fine.
Absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. Enjoy it.
I'm pretty much the same. But if that's still happening after 3 years, we've got a problem.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, but I'm the same, right? Your body is... I like what you're saying, because your body is craving something, and then we're like, no, we shouldn't have it. Why shouldn't we have it? Because I'm going to put on 1 kilo. Yeah. Well, your body wants it for a reason, and like it'll then tell you not to. But if it becomes a habit, then, and it's something like, then there is a point where it can start to go wrong. But
it rarely does with this population, to be honest. I don't see that. I don't see that. I see a lot of women more panicked about it than an end result of lots of overweight postpartum ladies. I don't see it. I see this is a population. Anyone who's listening to the podcast loves to keep fit and loves to work out and loves to look after their body.
Oh, you're so nice to the people.
It's natural and inevitable that postpartum, it will sort itself out. That's cool. Go easy on yourself. Be kind to yourself in pregnancy. Pregnancy is tough enough as it is, then getting it absolutely perfect, on point with your macros and your micros. Just go easy on yourself. Make sure that you're managing to take in enough, that you have energy, and that you're staying hydrated, and that you can get to the gym and not feel completely floored afterwards, and the rest will follow, honestly. In time, it will follow. But if you do feel like you're not getting what you need from your diet alone, then just a simple natural protein supplement shake is more than you need. No creatine needed here. Yeah. We
could go on so many tangents.
Yeah, we
could. Open another bit of Pandora's box.
I know. So much. So many different areas.
It's awesome. I think what you're doing, the way you speak about it, and the knowledge, we've literally just scratched the surface on a number of different areas. But everyone should hop over hatchathletic.com.
Hatchathletic.com or
got it right.
Hatch. at hatch_athletic on our Instagram, or join our Facebook group. There's lots of stuff going on there.
That's cool. I like where you started as well. Just a blog and a community to try and help and to share. It's very cool. We should have more. We should have another conversation, and I think everyone should contribute to the solution. Yeah. That makes sense. Talk 100%. More, feel more comfortable. I think ladies should, it's easy to say they should share, but guys and other ladies also have to be better at helping them to share, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Providing the platform.
I think it's about taking it on yourself to do the courses and get the knowledge yourself. Yeah. And then that way you can make autonomous decisions and feel more confident about that whole area.
Yeah.
And if not, that's absolutely fine, but just don't pretend that you've got that knowledge.
It's cool to say, I'm not sure here, we need to get you somewhere else.
Let's signpost you to someone else.
Yeah.
And then you're keeping these ladies safe. Yeah.
Kat, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.